life remains in the snake until sunset, even though it be cut into a dozen parts. The Hopi Indians consider the serpent to be in close communication with the earth spirit. Therefore, at the time of their annual snake dance they send their prayers to the earth spirit by first specially sanctifying large numbers of these reptiles and then liberating them to return to the earth with the prayers of the tribe. The great rapidity of motion manifested by lizards has caused them to be associated with Mercury, the messenger of the gods, whose winged feet traveled infinite distances almost instantaneously. A point which must not be overlooked in connection with reptiles and symbolism is clearly brought out by the eminent scholar, Dr. H.E. Santee. In his Anatomy of the Brain and Spinal Cord in reptiles there are two pineal bodies, an anterior and a posterior, of which the posterior remains undeveloped but the anterior forms a rudimentary, cyclopean eye. In the Hotaria, a New Zealand lizard, it projects through the parietal foramen and presents an imperfect lens and retina and, in its long stalk, nerve fibers. Crocodiles were regarded by the Egyptians both as symbols of Typhon and emblems of the supreme deity, of the latter because while underwater the crocodile is capable of seeing, Plutarch asserts, though its eyes are covered by a thin membrane. The Egyptians declared that no matter how far away the crocodile laid its eggs, the Nile would reach up to them in its next inundation, this reptile being endowed with a mysterious sense capable of making known the extent of the flood months before it took place. There were two kinds of crocodiles. The larger and more ferocious was hated by the Egyptians, for they likened it to the nature of Typhon, their destroying demon. Typhon waited to devour all who failed to pass the judgment of the dead, which rite took place in the Hall of Justice between the earth and the Elysian fields. Anthony Todd Thompson thus describes the good treatment accorded the smaller and tamer crocodiles, which the Egyptians accepted as personifications of good. They were fed daily and occasionally had mulled wine poured down their throats. Their ears were ornamented with rings of gold and precious stones, and their forefeet adorned with bracelets. To the Chinese the turtle was a symbol of longevity. At a temple in Singapore a number of sacred turtles are kept, their age recorded by carvings on their shells. The American Indians use the ridge down the back of the turtle shell as a symbol of the great divide between life and death. The turtle is a symbol of wisdom because it retires into itself and is its own protection. It is also a phallic symbol, as its relation to long life would signify. The Hindus symbolized the universe as being supported on the backs of four great elephants who, in turn, are standing upon an immense turtle which is crawling continually through chaos. The Egyptian Sphinx, the Greek centaur, and the Assyrian man-bull have much in common. All are composite creatures combining human and animal members. In the mysteries all signify the composite nature of man and subtly refer to the hierarchies of celestial beings that have charge of the destiny of mankind. These hierarchies are the 12 holy animals now known as constellations, star groups which are merely symbols of impersonal spiritual impulses. Chiron, the centaur, teaching the sons of men, symbolizes the intelligences of the constellation of Sagittarius, who were the custodians of the secret doctrine while geocentrically the sun was passing through the sign of Gemini. The 5-footed Assyrian man-bull with the wings of an eagle and the head of a man is a reminder that the invisible nature of man has the wings of a god, the head of a man, and the body of a beast. The same concept was expressed through the Sphinx, that armed guardian of the mysteries who, crouching at the gate of the temple, denied entrance to the profane. Thus placed between man and his divine possibilities, the Sphinx also represented the secret doctrine itself. Children's fairy stories abound with descriptions of symbolic monsters, for nearly all such tales are based upon the ancient mystic folklore. 2 inserts. The S. From Kircher's Oedipus Ipticus. The spinal cord was symbolized by a snake, and the serpent coiled upon the foreheads of the Egyptian initiates represented the divine fire which had crawled serpent-like up the tree of life. Good and evil contending for the universal egg. From Maurice's Indian Antiquities. Both Mithras, the Persian Redeemer, and Serapis, the Egyptian god of the earth, are symbolized by serpents coiled about their bodies. This remarkable drawing shows the good and evil principles of Persia, Ahura Mazda and Ahriman, contending for the egg of the earth, which each trying to wrench from the teeth of the other. Continued. Fishes, insects, animals, Reptiles and birds. Part 2. As appropriate emblems of various human and divine attributes, birds were included in religious and philosophic symbolism that of pagans and of Christians alike. Cruelty was signified by the buzzard, courage by the eagle, self-sacrifice by the pelican, and pride by the peacock. The ability of birds to leave the earth and fly aloft toward the source of light has resulted in their being associated with aspiration, purity, and beauty. Wings were therefore often added to various terrene creatures in an effort to suggest transcendency. Because their habitat was among the branches of the sacred trees in the hearts of ancient forests, birds were also regarded as the appointed messengers of the tree spirits and nature gods dwelling in these consecrated groves, and through their clear notes the gods themselves were said to speak. Many myths have been fabricated to explain the brilliant plumage of birds. A familiar example is the story of Juno's peacock, in whose tail feathers were placed the eyes of Argus. Numerous American Indian legends also deal with birds and the origin of the various colors of feathers. The Navajos declare that when all living things climbed to the stalk of a bamboo to escape the flood, the wild turkey was on the lowest branch and his tail feathers trailed in the water. Hence the color was all washed out. Gravitation, which is a law in the material world, is the impulse toward the center of materiality. Levitation, which is a law in the spiritual world, is the impulse toward the center of spirituality. Seeming to be capable of neutralizing the effect of gravity, the bird was said to partake of a nature superior to other terrestrial creation. And its feathers, because of their sustaining power, came to be accepted as symbols of divinity, courage, and accomplishment. A notable example is the dignity attached to eagle feathers by the American Indians, among whom they are insignia of merit. Angels have been invested with wings because, like birds, they were considered to be the intermediaries between the gods and men and to inhabit the air or middle kingdom betwixt heaven and earth. As the dome of the heavens was likened to a skull in the Gothic mysteries, so the birds which flew across the sky were regarded as thoughts of the deity. For this reason Odin's two messenger ravens were called Hugin and Munin, thought and memory. Among the Greeks and Romans, the eagle was the appointed bird of Jupiter and consequently signified the swiftly moving forces of the demiurgus. Hence it was looked upon as the mundane lord of the birds, in contradistinction to the phoenix, which was symbolic of the celestial ruler. The eagle typified the sun in its material phase and also the immutable demiurgic law beneath which all mortal creatures must bend. The eagle was also the hermetic symbol of sulfur, and signified the mysterious fire of Scorpio, the most profoundly significant sign of the zodiac and the gate of the great mystery. Being one of the three symbols of Scorpio, the eagle, like the goat of Mendes, was an emblem of the liturgic art and the secret processes by which the infernal fire of the scorpion was transmuted into the spiritual light fire of the gods. Among certain American Indian tribes the thunderbird is held in peculiar esteem. This divine creature is said to live above the clouds. The flapping of its wings causes the rumbling which accompanies storms, while the flashes from its eyes are the lightning. Birds were used to signify the vital breath. And among the Egyptians, mysterious hawk-like birds with human heads, and carrying in their claws the symbols of immortality, are often shown hovering as emblems of the liberated soul over the mummified bodies of the dead. In Egypt the hawk was the sacred symbol of the sun. And Ra, Osiris, and horns are often depicted with the heads of hawks. The cock, or rooster, was a symbol of Kashmalek and Milis in the Samothracian mysteries, and is also a phallic symbol sacred to the sun. It was accepted by the Greeks as the emblem of Ares Mars and typified watchfulness and defense. When placed in the center of a weather vane it signifies the sun in the midst of the four corners of creation. The Greeks sacrificed a rooster to the gods at the time of entering the Eleusinian mysteries. Sir Francis Bacon is supposed to have died as the result of stuffing a fowl with snow. May this not signify Bacon's initiation into the pagan mysteries which still existed in his day? Both the peacock and the ibis were objects of veneration because they destroyed the poisonous reptiles which were popularly regarded as the emissaries of the infernal gods. Because of the myriad of eyes in its tail feathers the peacock was accepted as the symbol of wisdom, and on account of its general appearance it was often confused with the fabled phoenix of the mysteries. There is a curious belief that the flesh of the peacock will not